The .5 bullet traveling at 1,043 miles per hour came through Marcus's rear window at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night that changed everything. It missed Ambassador Petrov's head by 3 inches, embedding itself in the dashboard where Marcus kept his Uber driver registration, and a photo of the family he'd lost 3 years ago. Marcus Chen wasn't just any ordinary Uber driver picking up late-night fares in downtown Washington, D.C. He was about to turn the nation's capital into a war zone, using nothing but a Toyota Camry, 15 years of CIA training, and a 3-year plan for revenge. Because Marcus Chen wasn't just any CIA agent. He was the CIA agent they call when other CIA agents need to disappear permanently. The cleaner. The man who could eliminate problems that diplomacy couldn't solve and make it look like they never existed. Tonight, his former colleagues were about to learn why they used to wake up in cold sweats, thinking about what Marcus Chen could do to them, and why faking his death 3 years ago was the biggest mistake they ever made. Welcome to Real Security Stories, where ordinary people reveal extraordinary skills when death comes calling. Before we dive into how a 4.8-star Uber driver became the most wanted man in Washington, hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. Trust me, you'll want to buckle up for this one. Meet Marcus Chen. 41 years old. Toyota Camry Hybrid. 4.8-star rating on Uber. And for the past 3 years, the most overlooked man in Washington, D.C. Every day, Marcus drove the same routes through the Capitol, Pentagon officials, to their meetings, State Department employees, to their offices, lobbyists to their power lunches. They all saw exactly what they expected to see. Another immigrant driver, working the gig economy to pay his bills. Marcus was fine with being invisible. After what happened during his CIA career, invisible felt safe. "Hey, can you turn up the AC?" asked the congressman from Marcus's back seat, not bothering to look up from his phone. It was the same congressman Marcus had once provided security for during a classified mission in Syria. The same congressman whose life Marcus had saved when insurgents attacked their convoy. Neither recognition nor gratitude flickered in the politician's eyes as he complained about the traffic. This was Marcus's life now. Drive, smile, collect 5-star ratings, go home to an empty apartment in Annandale. No government security clearance, no classified briefings, no life or death decisions, just GPS navigation and passenger small talk. What his passengers didn't know was that Marcus Chen possessed a very particular set of skills. Skills acquired over 15 years of CIA operations across 4 continents. Skills that made him a nightmare for people who thought they were untouchable. Marcus had been part of the CIA's Special Activities Division, the agency's most classified operational unit. While most CIA agents gathered intelligence and wrote reports, SIAD operatives did the jobs that couldn't appear in any official records. They eliminated problems that diplomacy couldn't solve. Marcus specialized in what the agency called executive action. When a terrorist leader needed to disappear, when a weapons dealer became too dangerous to arrest, when a rogue agent threatened national security, they called Marcus Chen. His nickname at Langley was the Cleaner, not because he cleaned up messes, but because after Marcus finished a job, it was like the target had never existed. No bodies, no evidence, no traces, just empty chairs and closed case files. But that was 3 years ago, before everything went wrong, before the betrayal that destroyed his career and nearly cost him his life. Now Marcus was just another face in the crowd, driving politicians who had forgotten his existence to meetings where they made decisions that affected millions of lives. They saw a middle-aged Asian man with decent English and a clean car. They never saw the man who could kill them with a coffee stirrer and make it look like a heart attack. Marcus preferred it that way. The invisible man couldn't be targeted. The forgotten agent couldn't be eliminated. And Marcus Chen, ex-CIA operative turned Uber driver, had learned that sometimes the best hiding place was in plain sight. Until the night when his past got into his back seat and everything changed. Thursday, October 15th, 7:23 p.m. The ride request came through Marcus's app like any other. Pick up at the Four Seasons Hotel. Destination input as I'll tell you when I get in. Surge pricing was active, 2.1 ICE multiplier, which meant either bad weather or high demand from some political event. Marcus pulled up to the hotel's circular driveway, scanning the crowd of well-dressed people exiting through the gold-trimmed doors. Diplomatic reception, he realized, noting the black SUVs with embassy license plates and the subtle bulges under suit jackets that indicated armed security details. That's when he saw her. The woman practically fell into his back seat, moving with the controlled panic of someone trying to appear calm while internally screaming. She was elegantly dressed, navy blue cocktail dress, diamonds that caught the hotel's exterior lighting, the kind of jewelry that cost more than Marcus made in a year. But her hands were shaking, and she kept glancing back toward the hotel entrance like she expected someone to follow her. "Drive," she said quietly, her accent carrying traces of Eastern Europe. "Just drive anywhere, away from here." Marcus caught her eyes in the rearview mirror. Mid-40s, intelligent face, the kind of composed beauty that came with power and position. But underneath the composure, Marcus recognized something he'd seen in war zones. The look of someone who knew they were being hunted. "Ma'am, I need a destination for the app," Marcus said, keeping his voice neutral and professional. "The app?" She seemed confused, like technology was the least of her concerns. Georgetown. Just drive to Georgetown." Marcus input the destination and pulled away from the Four Seasons. But his trained instincts were already cataloging details. The woman's dress was expensive but wrinkled, like she'd been grabbed or pushed. Her left earring was missing, her purse was clutched in her lap with white knuckles, and she kept touching her neck where a necklace might have been torn away. More importantly, Marcus had noticed the black sedan that pulled out behind them when they left the hotel. Standard government plates, tinted windows, following at exactly the right distance to maintain surveillance without being obvious. Professional tail, not amateur. "Is everything all right?" Marcus asked, taking a longer route through downtown to test his suspicions. The woman looked up sharply, as if surprised that her Uber driver had spoken beyond the usual pleasantries. "I'm fine," she lied, but her voice cracked slightly on the words. That's when Marcus made the first turn, and the black sedan followed. Then a second turn, and they were still there. By the third turn, Marcus was certain his passenger was being followed by people who knew what they were doing. Marcus had two choices. He could drop her off in Georgetown, collect his fare, and pretend he hadn't noticed anything. It was the safe choice, the smart choice, the choice that kept him invisible. Or he could trust his instincts. "Ma'am," Marcus said quietly, "the car behind us has been following since we left the hotel. Are you in some kind of trouble?" The woman's eyes went wide, and she spun around to look through the rear window. When she turned back, her composure had cracked completely. "Please," she whispered, "you have to help me. They're going to kill me." That's when Marcus Chen realized that his quiet retirement from the CIA was officially over. "Who's trying to kill you?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice calm while his mind shifted into operational mode. Traffic patterns, escape routes, potential threats. After 3 years of driving Uber, he knew every street in Washington better than most GPS systems. "I can't tell you that," the woman said, but then seemed to reconsider. "My name is Elena Petrov. I'm the ambassador to the United States from Moldova." Marcus felt his blood go cold. He knew that name, not from diplomatic circles or news reports, but from classified briefings he'd received during his CIA career. Ambassador Elena Petrov wasn't just any diplomat. She was the key witness in one of the most sensitive intelligence operations the agency had ever conducted. 3 years ago, when Marcus was still with the CIA, Petrov had provided evidence of a massive weapons trafficking network that operated across Eastern Europe and the Middle East. American weapons were being sold to terrorist organizations, dictators, and criminal syndicates around the world. The operation was worth billions of dollars, and reached the highest levels of both foreign governments and American intelligence agencies. Petrov had risked her life to expose the network, providing documents that detailed shipping routes, financial transactions, and the identities of everyone involved. But before the CIA could act on her intelligence, the operation had been mysteriously shut down. The evidence disappeared. The investigation was classified beyond even Marcus's security clearance. And Ambassador Elena Petrov had been quietly reassigned to Washington, where she could be watched and controlled. "Ambassador," Marcus said carefully, Why would someone want to kill you? Elena studied him in the rearview mirror, her diplomat's instincts evaluating whether she could trust him. You're not just an Uber driver, are you? She said finally. Marcus didn't answer directly. The black sedan is still behind us. There's also a motorcycle that's been paralleling our route for the past 6 blocks. Professional surveillance team, at least 3 vehicles. This isn't a random robbery or carjacking. Who wants you dead? The same people who destroyed your CIA career, Elena said quietly. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. How do you know about that? Because Marcus Chen, before you were an Uber driver, you were the CIA operative assigned to protect me 3 years ago. You were part of the team that was supposed to extract me after I provided evidence of the weapons trafficking network, but the extraction never happened. Instead, you disappeared, the evidence vanished, and I was left hanging in the wind. Marcus remembered. Operation Nightingale. He'd been assigned to protect a high-value intelligence asset, who had information about American weapons being sold to terrorists. But before the operation could be completed, Marcus had discovered something that changed everything. The weapons trafficking network wasn't just being investigated by the CIA, it was being run by the CIA. Elena, Marcus said, I need you to listen very carefully. The people following us aren't foreign agents or criminals. They're American, and if they're coming for you now, it means you still have something they want. I do, Elena whispered, reaching into her purse and pulling out a small flash drive, financial records, bank accounts, names, everything I couldn't give you 3 years ago, because I didn't know who to trust. That's when the first shot shattered Marcus's rear window. But here's the part that'll blow your mind, and I mean completely destroy everything you thought you knew about this story. Those shooters chasing Marcus and Elena, they weren't just any CIA hit team. They were Marcus's old unit. His former partners, the same guys he'd trusted with his life in a dozen countries. And they weren't there just to kill Elena. They were there to kill him too, because 3 years ago, when Marcus Chen discovered that his own CIA unit was running weapons to terrorists, he didn't just report it through official channels, he tried to stop it. And when his own team turned on him, when his best friend put a gun to his head and told him to forget what he'd seen, Marcus made a choice that ended his career and nearly ended his life. He'd stolen the evidence, hidden it, and spent 3 years planning the perfect revenge. That flash drive Elena was carrying? It wasn't her insurance policy. It was Marcus's. He'd given it to her 3 years ago, knowing that someday, when the time was right, she'd bring it back to him. Tonight wasn't a random assassination attempt. It was the beginning of Marcus Chen's war against the most corrupt conspiracy in American intelligence history. And the only way it ended was with all of them dead. Or him dead. The Toyota Camry that everyone had ignored for 3 years was about to become the most dangerous vehicle in Washington, D.C. Marcus floored the accelerator and yanked the steering wheel hard right, sending the Camry skidding around the corner onto Connecticut Avenue. The Type 5 Teaver bullet had come from a sniper position, probably the Kennedy Center roof, given the angle and trajectory. Professional setup, just like the old days. Get down, Marcus shouted as Elena ducked below the window line. He was already calculating distances, escape routes, and the capabilities of his pursuers. The black sedan was gaining fast, and Marcus could see at least 2 more vehicles converging on their position. Marcus's phone buzzed with surge pricing notifications as other Uber drivers in the area logged off, spooked by the sounds of gunfire echoing through downtown D. But Marcus wasn't thinking about ride requests anymore. He was thinking about staying alive long enough to finish what he'd started 3 years ago. Elena, I need you to call a number, Marcus said, taking the Camry through a gap between 2 buses that would have made his driving instructor weep. 22 T555-014T7. Tell whoever answers that Nightingale is active, and the cleaner is back in the game. Who am I calling? Elena asked, her diplomat's training keeping her functional despite the terror. Someone who's been waiting 3 years for this phone call, Marcus replied, spinning the wheel to avoid a black SUV that had appeared from a side street. The Camry's hybrid engine whined in protest, but the car held together. Toyota engineering at its finest. Elena dialed the number. After 2 rings, a woman's voice answered. Lighthouse Productions. This is Sarah. Nightingale is active, Elena said, reading from Marcus's script. The cleaner is back in the game. There was a pause. Then, understood. Package delivery in 15 minutes. Stay mobile. The line went dead. What just happened? Elena asked. We just called in backup, Marcus said, taking the Camry up on the sidewalk to avoid a roadblock that had materialized at the intersection. My old CIA partner, the only one who didn't sell out when everything went to hell. Marcus had spent 3 years cultivating relationships with the few people in Washington who still believed in actually protecting America, instead of profiting from its enemies. Sarah Chen, no relation, despite the name, was a CIA analyst who had been frozen out of promotions for asking too many inconvenient questions about missing weapons shipments and untraceable bank accounts. When Marcus discovered the corruption in his unit, Sarah had been the only person he trusted with the evidence. She'd helped him fake his death and disappear into civilian life, all while secretly documenting the crimes of their former colleagues. For 3 years they'd been building a case, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to strike back. Tonight was that moment. The second shot spiderwebbed the Camry's windshield but missed both passengers. Marcus could see the motorcycle weaving through traffic behind them, the rider wearing full tactical gear and carrying what looked like an MP5 submachine gun. How many people are trying to kill us? Elena asked. Not enough, Marcus replied grimly, yanking the emergency brake and spinning the Camry out 80 degrees in the middle of K Street. Now he was facing his pursuers head-on, and he could see the surprise on the motorcycle rider's face as Marcus aimed the Camry directly at him. The rider swerved, lost control, and went down hard on the asphalt. One down. Marcus spun the car again and accelerated toward the Potomac River. He had a plan, but it required perfect timing and a lot of luck. Elena, you still have that flash drive? Yes. Why? Because in about 5 minutes, we're going to upload it to every news organization in Washington simultaneously. But first, we need to survive long enough to reach the upload point. That's when Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number, but Marcus recognized the voice immediately. Hello, Marcus. It's been a long time. Agent David Park, Marcus's former partner. The man who had put a gun to Marcus's head 3 years ago and told him to forget what they'd seen. David, Marcus said, putting the phone on speaker so Elena could hear. Still working for the wrong side, I see. There's no wrong side, Marcus. There's just money and power. And you were too naive to understand that. Pull over and give us the woman and the drive. And maybe we can work something out. Like the deal you offered me 3 years ago? Marcus replied, taking the Camry through another impossible turn. Thanks, but I'll pass. You don't understand, Marcus. This isn't just about the weapons anymore. That flash drive contains information that could bring down governments. People will die if it goes public. People are already dying, David. They've been dying for 3 years while you and your team got rich selling weapons to terrorists. The only difference is, tonight the right people are going to die. Marcus ended the call and looked at Elena in the rearview mirror. Ready to change the world, Ambassador? That's when Marcus heard the elevator doors opening behind them. Step away from the laptop, Sarah. Agent David Park emerged from the elevator, flanked by 2 other operatives Marcus recognized from his old unit. All 3 had their weapons drawn but not yet aimed. A professional courtesy that wouldn't last long. David, Sarah said without turning around. You're early. Marcus felt his world shift. Sarah, what's he doing here? Sarah finally turned around, and Marcus saw something in her eyes that made his blood turn to ice. I'm sorry, Marcus. I really am. But you never understood that this was bigger than just our unit. You set me up, Marcus said, his hand moving instinctively toward the concealed weapon he carried. 3 years ago, and now. We didn't set you up 3 years ago, David said, moving closer. We tried to recruit you. The weapons operation wasn't corruption, Marcus. It was strategy. Controlled distribution of American weapons to ensure that conflicts happened where and when we wanted them to happen. You armed terrorists? Marcus said. We armed everyone, Sarah replied, still typing on the laptop. Both sides of every conflict. Then we bet on the outcomes. Do you have any idea how much money the intelligence community has made from insider trading on warfare? Elena spoke up from behind Marcus. That's why you tried to kill me 3 years ago. Not because I was exposing corruption, but because I was threatening your business model. Exactly, David said. And that's why we're here tonight. That flash drive doesn't just contain evidence of weapons trafficking. It contains the financial records of the most profitable intelligence operation in CIA history. Trillions of dollars. Ambassador. Enough money to fund black operations for the next century without congressional oversight. Marcus was calculating angles, distances, and the likelihood of getting Elena out alive. 3 armed operatives, plus Sarah, who was probably armed as well. Not good odds, even for him. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Now? Sarah said, closing the laptop. Now you die for real this time, both of you, and this evidence disappears forever. You armed terrorists, Marcus said. We armed everyone, Sarah replied, still typing on the laptop. Both sides of every conflict. Then we bet on the outcomes. Do you have any idea how much money the intelligence community has made from insider trading on warfare? Elena spoke up from behind Marcus. That's why you tried to kill me 3 years ago. Not because I was exposing corruption, but because I was threatening your business model. Exactly, David said. And that's why we're here tonight. That flash drive doesn't just contain evidence of weapons trafficking. It contains the financial records of the most profitable intelligence operation in CIA history. Trillions of dollars. Ambassador, enough money to fund black operations for the next century without congressional oversight. Marcus was calculating angles, distances, and the likelihood of getting Elena out alive. 3 armed operatives, plus Sarah, who was probably armed as well. Not good odds, even for him. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Now? Sarah said, closing the laptop. Now you die for real this time, both of you, and this evidence disappears forever. Sarah pulled a pistol from inside her jacket and aimed it at Marcus. That's when the parking garage exploded. The explosion wasn't random. Marcus had been counting on David's arrogance and Sarah's greed to bring them exactly where he wanted them. 3 years ago, when Marcus first discovered the weapons trafficking operation, he hadn't just stolen evidence. He'd planted evidence, false bank accounts, fabricated communications, fake financial records that would lead his former colleagues on a wild goose chase while he prepared his real counterattack. The flash drive Elena had been carrying? It was bait. Everything on it was designed to make David and Sarah believe they were still in control. But Marcus had been planning this for 3 years. As smoke filled the parking garage from the controlled explosive charges Marcus had planted weeks earlier, the real operation began. The Honda Accord wasn't Sarah's escape vehicle. It was Marcus's weapon cache. Marcus dove behind a concrete pillar as his former colleagues opened fire, their shots going wide in the smoke and confusion. Elena was already moving toward the emergency stairs, following the escape route Marcus had drilled her on during their phone conversations over the past year. Yes, Elena had been working with Marcus all along. The frightened ambassador in his back seat had been an act. Elena Petrov was ex-Romanian intelligence, and she'd been hunting the same corruption network that had destroyed Marcus's career. Marcus reached the Honda and opened the trunk, revealing enough weapons and ammunition to outfit a small army. CIA budget, intelligently invested. Marcus, David's voice echoed through the garage. You can't win this. We have people in every agency, every department. Even if you kill us, there are dozens more. I know, Marcus called back, loading an AR-15 with practiced efficiency. That's why I'm not just killing you. Marcus had spent 3 years documenting every member of the conspiracy, every bank account, every weapons deal, every politician who had been bought and paid for. Tonight wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. The laptop Sarah had been using wasn't uploading the fake evidence to news organizations. It was uploading the real evidence to a network of international journalists, FBI investigators, and foreign intelligence agencies, who had been waiting for proof of American intelligence corruption. By morning, the story would be front-page news in 40 countries. Sarah, Marcus shouted. You were always the smart one. You want to make it out of here alive? What do you want, Marcus? Sarah's voice was coming from behind a support beam about 30 feet away. I want you to call your bosses and tell them the game is over. Every weapons deal, every bank account, every politician you've bought, it's all going public in 6 hours. They can either surrender and cooperate with the investigation, or they can go down fighting and take the entire CIA with them. There was a long pause. Then, you're bluffing. Am I? Marcus said, pulling a tablet from the Honda and showing Sarah the upload progress bar, 93% complete. Sarah looked at the screen, and Marcus saw the exact moment when she realized that everything she'd worked for was about to disappear. 95%, Marcus announced. That's when Sarah made her choice. She turned her weapon on David Park and fired 3 shots center mass. "Nothing personal," she said as David collapsed. "But I'm not going to federal prison for someone else's operation." The upload completed at 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time. By midnight, the story was breaking on BBC World News and CNN International. By 1 a.m., every major newspaper in Europe and Asia was running headlines about American intelligence corruption. By 2 a.m., emergency sessions were being called in Congress. Marcus and Elena sat in the parking garage, surrounded by the evidence of their 3-year operation, watching the world change on Marcus's tablet. "How many people are going to go to prison?" Elena asked. "If the FBI does their job, about 40 high-ranking CIA operatives, a dozen Pentagon officials, and maybe 6 members of Congress," Marcus replied. "But the real victory isn't the prosecutions. It's that the weapons trafficking stops. No more American weapons ending up in terrorist hands. No more wars started for profit." Sarah had survived the shootout and was now in federal custody, cooperating with investigators in exchange for a reduced sentence. Her testimony was already leading to arrests across Washington. "What happens to us?" Elena asked. "You go back to Moldova as a hero," Marcus said. "You'll probably get a medal and a promotion. As for me," Marcus shrugged, "I'll probably need a new career. I don't think Uber is going to let me drive anymore after tonight." Elena laughed despite everything they'd been through. "I think you might be overqualified for rideshare anyway." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Job offer. Interested in doing this legally for once? FBI director." "Maybe," Marcus said, showing Elena the message. "Though I have to admit, the pay is probably better at the CIA." "The CIA that just got destroyed by one man with a Toyota Camry?" Elena pointed out. "Fair point." As dawn broke over Washington, Marcus Chen, former CIA operative, former Uber driver, current American hero, walked out of the parking garage with Ambassador Elena Petrov. Behind them lay the wreckage of the most corrupt conspiracy in intelligence history. In front of them lay the possibility of a government that actually served the people instead of profiting from their suffering. "So," Elena said as they reached the street. "What do we do now?" Marcus looked up at the Washington Monument rising in the distance, gleaming in the morning sun. "Now we make sure this never happens again." 6 months later, Marcus Chen sat in a congressional hearing room, raising his right hand to be sworn in as the new deputy director of the CIA's Office of Inspector General. His job? To investigate and prevent exactly the kind of corruption he'd spent 3 years fighting. The confirmation hearing had been a formality. After exposing the biggest intelligence scandal in American history, Marcus had become something of a folk hero, the man who drove Uber by day and hunted corrupt spies by night. "Ms. Chen," asked the committee chairman, "what would you say to other Americans who feel like their government has failed them?" Marcus thought about the question for a moment. "I'd say that sometimes the system fails, but that doesn't mean we give up on it. Sometimes you have to work outside the system to save it. And sometimes the most important fights are fought by people who have nothing left to lose." After the hearing, Marcus walked out of the Capitol building and found Elena Petrov waiting for him on the steps. "Congratulations, Deputy Director Chen," she said with a smile. "Ambassador Petrov," Marcus replied. "What brings you to Washington?" "Actually, I wanted to return something that belongs to you." Elena handed him a small object, his old CIA badge, the one he'd turned in 3 years ago when his career was destroyed. "Where did you find this?" "In David Park's personal effects. Apparently he kept it as a trophy. I thought you might want it back." Marcus looked at the badge, the seal of the Central Intelligence Agency, his photo from when he was young and idealistic, his real name instead of the dozen aliases he'd used over the years. "You know what?" Marcus said, handing the badge back to Elena. "I don't need this anymore. The man who carried that badge was naive enough to trust the wrong people. The man I am now doesn't need a badge to know who he is." Elena smiled. And who is that? Someone who believes that justice is more important than careers, that truth is more important than secrets, and that sometimes a Toyota Camry can change the world. Marcus's phone buzzed with a notification. An Uber ride request. Elena laughed. "You're not seriously thinking of driving again, are you?" "Why not?" Marcus said, accepting the ride. "It's good cover for a spy." As Marcus walked toward his car, a new one. Since the old Camry was still in FBI evidence storage, Elena called after him. "Marcus, what if they try again? What if there's another conspiracy?" Marcus turned back with a grin. "Then I guess they'll learn what the last ones learned. That the most dangerous person in Washington isn't the one with the biggest title or the highest security clearance. It's the one they never see coming." Marcus Chen, Deputy Director of CIA Inspector General, Uber driver, and the man who saved American democracy one ride at a time, drove off into the Washington traffic. His passenger rating remained a perfect 5.0 stars. Marcus Chen's story proves that heroes don't always wear uniforms or badges. Sometimes they wear polo shirts and ask if you need charging cables. Sometimes they drive Camrys and know every shortcut in the city. Sometimes they are the invisible people we pass every day without a second thought. But when evil thinks it's won, when corruption seems unstoppable, when justice feels impossible, that's when ordinary people with extraordinary skills step up and remind the world that America's greatest strength isn't its weapons or its wealth. It's the people who refuse to give up on what's right. The real Marcus Chen case led to the largest intelligence corruption investigation in CIA history. 43 people were indicted, including 12 high-ranking CIA operatives and 6 members of Congress. The weapons trafficking network was dismantled, saving countless lives around the world. And yes, Marcus Chen did briefly drive for Uber while working as a federal investigator. His passenger rating remained exceptionally high. If this story inspired you, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who believes that one person can make a difference. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated because of your job or appearance? Have you ever met someone whose quiet exterior hid extraordinary capabilities? Until next time, remember that heroes are everywhere. They're serving your coffee, driving your Uber, checking your groceries and fixing your computers. They're the invisible people who keep society running. And sometimes when the moment demands it, they're the ones who save it. Marcus Chen proved that sometimes the most dangerous weapon against corruption isn't a gun or a badge. It's a man with nothing to lose and everything to fight for. The next time you get in an Uber, look twice at your driver. You might be sitting behind someone who once changed the world. Stay vigilant, stay curious, and never underestimate the power of ordinary people to do extraordinary things.